And hello, everyone. So happy to see so many known faces. And thank you so much for joining on time. We just started with some music based on recommendation. So today is a really special day. We're having a really fun discussion today with Skilio. So before we go into it, maybe will just introduce myself. Dinglong, Linka, and the team that is here. I'm also part of the Movers program. I'm from originally from Mexico, but based in Singapore. And I work closely with Youth Club, one of our Youth Club champions from last cohort was Skilio. And we are very, very close to this initiative because we are fully aware of the challenges that are facing the youth today. And this is a problem that not happen only here in Singapore, but also in the whole region. And it's how are we able to really, we keep talking about how important soft skills development are, but what are even soft skills, right? And how can we even make sure that soft skills are measured, are taken into consideration just as well as all other skills that we are good at measuring. For example, at school, you just take a test and they can tell whether or not you're good at, I don't know, math, which in my case was always really not a good outcome. But it's just understanding how can we actually take advantage of our soft skills and be able to introduce them and to be, not only, oh, I'm good at math, but I'm also good at talking to people. How do you measure your leadership skills? Why is this even important today? So without further ado, let me introduce our speaker today, our very, very special guest. I will keep mispronouncing her name and she is gonna just share it properly, but it's Sui Hui. Yeah, so Skilio has a solution for this problem on soft skills development and measurement as well. So I will pass it to her so she can introduce herself and share it as well. Welcome.
Okay, thank you so much, Carla, for the introduction and the team for putting this together as well. I really love meeting like-minded change makers out there. I think this is why all of us are here right here today as well, to listen about skills and how we can actually use soft skills to be differentiated right in the job market when looking for employment opportunities as well. So let me just share my screen. Okay, I just like to check if everyone can see my screen. Wonderful. Okay, so maybe just as a little warm-up, right? I understand all of you are so active in the chat. That's wonderful. I just wanted to check, right, from all of you who actually heard about today's masterclass, today's session, what made you actually want to come to today's session? What do you actually want to get out of the session? So yeah, feel free to type on the chat. I would love to see, why, and what attracted you to actually come for this session as well. What are some of these goals that you hope to achieve and take away from today's session as well? Yeah, feel free. I understand some of you are still typing. Yes, I think there are a lot of familiar faces. A lot of you have seen each other before. That's wonderful. Okay, any other responses? Anybody who wants to share what you want to get out of this session? Okay, proper allocation of job resources for deserved soft skills. Right, that's wonderful. Anybody else? Okay, how do we best actually manage and conquer the technical challenges in the hiring process in the HR space? So a lot of people, they find challenges in being able to craft their applications, in being able to prepare for interviews, right? Write the correct responses, right? And yeah, it's back to seeing familiar faces. That's wonderful. I think I am the new face here, so I'll actually give a rough introduction of myself. So I'm Zhi Hui. I'm one of the co-founders and Chief Operations Officer at Skilio. And we took part in the Youth Action Challenge, right, in Singapore as well, organized together with Youth Collab. So actually for myself, I'm still a student. I'm still studying. I'm an undergraduate at the National University of Singapore, and I'm studying psychology and a little bit of business as well. And I have a little bit of experience. I'm quite of a generalist, right? I started out in internship as a trainer. So I actually work a lot with youth in Singapore to actually develop soft skills for the students. I've been in like a marketing scene, product development, and business development and research. And here in Skilio, I actually practically do everything and anything about the business, and I'm really learning a lot along the way as well. And for me, just a little bit of my backstory. Why did I actually even start this in the first place, and why am I here today? Back in my schooling days, right, I was actually very involved in school, and in particular extracurricular activities. So I was the student council president in school. I played in the school orchestra. I played the cello. I'm not sure if anyone actually plays the cello. And representing the school as a student ambassador in various projects as well. And interestingly, right, I actually had troubles passing all my exams, even up to my preliminary examinations. So in Singapore, we actually have to take the Cambridge A levels. So that was the big deal, right? To actually graduate from high school and go into university. And yeah, during my prelim examinations, I still remember I was actually struggling because I wasn't able to pass all my subjects. I was really anxious, but I had many patient teachers who actually guided me along, and eventually managed to pass my A levels. And eventually I did not do the best, right? I didn't do the best for my A levels, but I actually did qualify to get into a local university, which is the National University of Singapore. And for me, I actually wanted to go to an overseas university and actually get a scholarship, right? But that was something that I actually, unfortunately, because of my results, I didn't get to do that. But because of this, it was kind of a blessing in disguise, right? Because of this, I actually had the time to actually take up an internship before I started university. And I actually landed myself in this training company where I actually had opportunities to give speaking engagements to students who are a little bit younger than me, who actually were interested in learning how they could develop some of these employability skills. So things like teamwork, communication, leadership, willingness to learn. I think these are all some of the soft skills that I actually had to share with these students about. Right? And this internship also actually helped me to refine what was my sweet spot between what I was good at, what I was passionate about, what could pay well, and what the world needs. So I'm sure a lot of you have about Ikigai model, right? Ikigai framework. So this was what I actually explored further as well when I was doing my internship before my university days. And subsequently in university, I then had the opportunity to take up training and development portfolios in school, because that was something that I realized I was interested in doing. And I also got to go to overseas, for my exchange programs. I actually went to Israel to work at a startup to do marketing and product development for this startup. I did hackathons as well, pitched my ideas, and that was a wonderful experience, which I really wouldn't have traded anything else for. Right? And throughout all these different experiences that I was actually taking part in, right, through all these non-academic experiences that I was taking part in, I realized the importance of soft skills, which is the topic that we're going to talk about today, right? Delivering a presentation, persuading someone to take up your idea in a pitch, working in teams, being able to handle conflict, being able to overcome difficulties, right? And having to actually shift an entire orientation camp online. So I was actually planning an orientation camp, but in 1 week they say, oh, because of COVID-19 restrictions, we have to hold it online. I mean, these are all very, very softer side of things that we don't really get to learn in the classroom. But I realized it was so important when I was in school. And I realized, soft skills were the one that actually got me all these opportunities, and definitely not my academic grades, because I wasn't the best at it. And not just in school, but at work as well. And what we realized at the Skilio team is that in the future, a lot of jobs will be soft skill intensive by 2030. And I think that's the case now, in fact, in some of these opportunities that I'm doing as well. And we spoke to a lot of HR managers who actually said that soft skills matter as much or even more than hard skills when it comes to making the decision whether they want to hire or even when they want to fire a person, an employee. And we realize this happens even if, say, be it you want to start your own startup like I did, right, or find your dream job, or be it in any industry that you want to take part in, right? Be it a service-oriented industry that's very front-facing, or even in the more technical industry, we realize that soft skills are the transferable skills that you will definitely need, regardless of which job, industry, or job role you eventually choose to take up. And what made us very worried, in the Skilio team, is that we realized that a lot of youth that we actually spoke to felt like they weren't prepared, although soft skills was so important for these different industries of work that they were applying for. So across different countries, right, youth around the world feel that schools don't really provide them with enough opportunities to develop some of these transferable skills that they actually want to develop for the job that they're applying for, which is why we actually created this platform, Skilio, which is a digital soft skills portfolio for students, to showcase some of these employability, soft skill competencies that we think is important for you to secure your jobs. And this is done by helping you in various applications that I think a lot of you mentioned as well, the interviews, the cover letters, the resumes, and things like that. Right, so I won't go into detail of what the Skilio platform is yet, because I think the synopsis talk about very hands-on approach, right, to let you try to craft some of these things to begin with. Right, so today's agenda is that we're going to talk about some myths about soft skills, how you can actually be more intentional in developing soft skills, how you can actually create your own soft skills portfolio to track your development, and how this can help you in your applications. And definitely I will leave a time for us to actually chit chat, have a good summary, and make it an interactive session as well, right? So maybe I see that the chat is really active, which is wonderful, but maybe can I just have a sensing right of who actually I'm speaking to today, because I think all of you are not very familiar faces, but could I actually just hear from all of you, who are you, right? What do you identify as? You can have actually more than one identity, but I just wanted to hear, right, who are you today? And it allows me to actually connect with you better and be able to tailor some of these examples and some of these resources for all of you as well. Right, learner, wonderful, podcast host. Right, I would love to hear your podcast. How are the rest of you? What do you identify? So what are you doing? Maybe in school, or let's say if you're not if you're a student, what are you studying, for example? Maybe do you have any passion projects that you're working on? Any side hustles, anything that you're working towards, any volunteer work that you are, a cause that you're passionate about? Yeah, would love to hear from more of you as well. Wow, crop scientist, wonderful. Coffee addict. Yeah, I just had a cup of coffee in the morning as well. Oh, okay, we have someone in the film studies as well. Great. Economics, volunteer, nice. Okay, yeah, keep that responses coming. So one reason why I also asked for your identity, right? Because I believe that a lot of us have more than one identity, right? And the fact that sometimes, right, when we actually apply for a job and they just look at your academic grades, that's not very fair, right, to what we are as a person, because sometimes your academic grades only tell one side of the story. But we believe that as an individual, right, there's actually so many things that you can actually share, so many things and so many stories about yourself that are worth considering, right, when you're actually trying to differentiate yourself from others as well. Which is why knowing your identity is really important, and being able to showcase this identity and how these identities will actually make you a good fit to the organization that you're working at, with the skills especially, is really important. So keep this in mind, right, when you're going through some of these examples as well, to think about how your identity can actually differentiate you and give you the necessary skills to thrive in the organization that you are actually applying for. And okay, so my next question for all of you would be, type in the chat, right? Do you think soft skills, right, having soft skills such as teamwork, leadership, communication, are these a product of nature or nurture? So maybe for those of you who don't really understand what the difference is, right? So nature is more of something that you're born with, right? So being the psychology student I am, I learned this a lot in school. So nature is something that you're born with. These are personality traits that you are actually given from birth. So you can't really change. Nurture is something that is more environmental in nature, meaning you can actually change and develop this over time. And this is something that is very flexible, right? It really depends on what kind of environment you grow up in, what kind of opportunities you choose to take up. Okay, some of you are saying both, some nature, more nurture. Okay, so maybe a mix of both, but slightly more nurture. Okay, great. Okay, so one thing that we actually realized, so at the Skilio team, right, the fact that we are trying to develop soft skills, we also actually had this discussion, right? So is soft skills actually a nature or nurture phenomena, right? So if you realize, if we look at some of these newspaper articles, right, there are also articles that are asking the same question, whether, you know, a successful leader is actually a product of nature, whether a successful leader is actually born, or a successful leader is actually nurtured over time through these different experiences and different environments. And we also look at, you know, research studies conducted. And these studies particularly said that 30% of leadership qualities are actually in genetics, meaning you're actually born with it. And some also insist that leadership can only happen in an environment, means that it is nurture, right? And look at this. So someone actually even said that there is something actually built into leaders, certain personality traits that correlate very highly with effective leadership, meaning this is a standpoint for nature, right? They're saying that actually you're born with certain personality traits, which makes it more likely for you to be an effective leader, right? So there is a division, not just among us, right, but among professors, among researchers as well, among studies, whether soft skills are nature or nurture. And we realized that soft skills, so what exactly are soft skills, right? Maybe let's go more in depth on what it is. Soft skills, right, are so highly debated because they are so important in how you perform at a job. And these are highly desirable qualities. And they are especially important for employment, right? So, you know, even the dictionary says something is common sense, right? But, you know, sometimes common sense is not that common after all. The ability to deal with people and a positive and flexible attitude. And, you know, soft skills are actually personality traits, a mix of personality traits and behaviors. So if you look more in depth into these two different terms, personality traits, these are nature, right? But behaviors are things that are slightly more changeable, right? So from our research, right, what we realized is that soft skills, right, can actually be represented in this model called the iceberg model of competencies, right? There are things that are below the water level. So if you see things from motives, traits, self-image, and social role, I think these are things that are not really very observable. These are things that are quite ingrained in yourself. There are things that are more observable, right? Such as skills and knowledge. So there is this debate of nature versus nurture because soft skills can transverse into this whole range of iceberg model. So soft skills can be understood as motives, but soft skills can also be understood as skills and knowledge, which is why there's this debate that that's actually emerged, right? And why I actually show all of you this model, right, is to actually break down soft skills into these different components so that everyone can have a better understanding of what this makes up. And this is very, very different as compared to hard skills as well, right? So what we realize here, right, is that if you see above this water level, these are more observable and at the same time easier to change compared to things as like your traits, like what I mentioned, the things, your personality traits. These are things that are harder to change. These are things that you're kind of born with that are harder to change. So definitely as a platform that aims to actually develop soft skills, what we all want to focus on are things that are more easy to change, right? Things that are changeable. A lot of times they say that you control what you can, right? You control what is within your means of control, which is why all of us here today should actually look at this part of the iceberg, right? The knowledge and skills. How can you then improve on this to be able to improve and nurture your soft skills, right? So definitely, yeah, like I mentioned, the skills part of things. Okay, and yes, so what we actually want to emphasize here is that soft skills like leadership, empathy, and collaboration, these are things that can be nurtured. It can be nurtured. And what we all want to do today is to focus on the changeable tier of soft skills And these are the behaviors that you can actually demonstrate and outwardly show to showcase your learned abilities. And it's just like a muscle that you can exercise. Right? Definitely those of you who gym often, right? Those of you who maybe learn an instrument, right? These are all exercising some certain parts of the muscles for some of these behaviors. So the more you demonstrate it in different experiences, the more it becomes second nature, right? So it's ironic, right? But definitely, with more practice and with the correct environment, is definitely something that you can nurture and make it more natural for you to actually exhibit. So the second myth, right, that I like to go through is, does having more soft skills make you better? So yes or no? Is it an issue of quantity, right? Does it mean that having more soft skills means you are better than someone else? Yes or no? So type in the chat. I'd like to hear what do you guys think? So does having more soft skills mean you are better? Okay, depends. It affects hard skills. Okay. Okay. Pretty mixed responses, very mixed responses. Right, so have a think about it, right? And why this question is quite debatable as well is because we are quite used to academics, right? So definitely if you get an A, you have higher points, right? You have higher points than someone who got a B. If you score higher at a test, most probably if you get more points and a higher score, it means that you're better. You have understood the concepts better and you can actually complete the exam better, right? But in this case, for soft skills, can we actually use the same basis for comparison? And the thing that is so difficult and nuanced because soft skills are just so difficult to quantify and assess, right? It's so contextual, it's so nuanced. And this is the reason why HR professionals themselves, when we actually spoke to them, actually told us that they have difficulty designing the correct assessments to screen for the right soft skills, right? So even for HR professionals who want to look out for team players, how do they even kind of determine or assess whether they have the soft skills? And it's not just a difficulty for graduates like us, but it's also difficult for employers to determine whether students or applicants have that necessary soft skills to perform the job well. So the nature of soft skills is just so unique and context dependent, which makes it an uphill task for both the applicants and the employers to determine whether they have the soft skills to be a good hire in the first place, right? And what we realize is that definitely for soft skills, right, we cannot really talk about more or less because it's just so difficult to quantify. But what might be a better measure, right, is whether you have the right fit of the soft skills for the right context, right? So let me break this down a little bit. Right? It might be a bit difficult to understand, but I see it's a puzzle piece, right, for what the organization of your choice is looking out for, and whether you have that necessary skill set to actually contribute meaningfully and be a value add to what they're missing or what they're looking out for. And definitely, saying you have these skills is not enough, right? Saying you're a good team player, I think maybe every applicant will say that you're a good team player, right? But giving the correct evidence, the relevant experience that you have that showcase some of these soft skills is even more important, right? Because they said that if you're actually a good team player, how so? Right? How have you actually practiced this in the past? And most of the time, your performance in past experiences is actually a much better predictor of your future performance compared to if you were just to say, oh, I have good teamwork. Right? I think that's not very credible as well. Yeah, so I think this is the second myth that we are looking at. And for the third one, right, the third myth. So how do you actually know that you are actually good at a soft skill? If you are saying that you're a good team player, how do you actually prove it? How do you prove that you are a good team player? Or how do you prove that you are a good communicator? Which is why we also feel like there is no good or bad, right? There's no like I'm good team player or a bad team player. It doesn't really tell much because, like I mentioned, soft skills are very context dependent. It's very technical. It's very nuanced, right? So there's no good or bad soft skills, but we can talk about what are some of your strengths and what are some of your blind spots. So when we talk about strengths, these are things that you demonstrate more easily. And blind spots are things that you take more effort to actually display or demonstrate. So it's very important for you to be aware of what are some of the strengths and blind spots that you have to help you identify potential ways to improve that. So potential ways could be, say, finding more opportunities to exercise it, right? Like finding more opportunities to develop this muscle, or finding other developmental opportunities specific to some of these blind spots to help you plug that gap. So just a very quick summary of the 3 myths that I talk about. So the first one is whether soft skills can be nurtured. So yes, it can be nurtured. Definitely it's a mix of nature and nurture, but definitely let's focus on what can be nurtured, right? Because these are things that can be changed and is under our control. The second thing is that right soft skills are needed for the right context. So I mentioned how it's quite difficult to quantify soft skills about how much you have actually done it. So like there's no such thing as, oh, the more the better, but more of, am I exhibiting the soft skills that are required for the right context? And the third one is about knowing your strengths and your blind spots. So there's no good or bad, but more of what can you demonstrate with more ease and less effort, and what can you demonstrate with more effort, right? So I think those are some of your blind spots. So yeah, before I actually move on, this is not the hands-on part yet. So yeah, I think are there any questions at all? Maybe I'll just pause here for a quick, maybe a few minutes for any one of you who have questions relating to what I've mentioned, in front. Yeah, it's okay if you're still thinking of questions, because yeah, we will have another session to talk about later as well, to interact as well. Okay, yeah, no worries if some of you are still thinking, some of you are still typing your questions. Yeah, feel free to just maybe prepare it, and then later you can check with me as well, right? So yeah, so definitely my next section, right, will be how then can we nurture soft skills? How can we be more intentional? How can we be more purposeful in developing these soft skills, and especially the soft skills that are required for that job that we've been eyeing for such a long time? Or knowing what are some of these strengths and blind spots, right? All starts with intentionality, which is something that I'll try to give everyone a teaser for today. Definitely 1.5 hours is not enough, but just a kickstart to your soft skill developmental journey. So now we know that soft skills can be actually inherently represented by behaviors that can be practiced over time, right? It is definitely possible for us to be more intentional with developing some of these soft skills, right? So today we will just go through this little exercise for everybody to develop your soft skills portfolio together, right? So what's going to happen, right, is let's all open this worksheet in your browser. Maybe I'll just send through the link as well in the chat, so it will be easier for all of you to open it on your browser. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah. So what's going to happen, right, is you will actually see this worksheet, and it's an Excel sheet, right? But this is an Excel sheet that I've created internally, my team. So it'll be good if you want to keep a copy for yourself. I highly recommend you to duplicate this sheet, make a copy, and save it in your own drive so that it can be yours, so that you can edit and type things in as I speak as well. Yeah, so I'll just give everybody maybe 1 or 2 minutes to open this in your browser. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can click on file and make a copy and save it in your own drive. Yeah, we're definitely more helpful if you do this on a desktop, on your computer rather than the phone, right? That will help you a lot. Yeah, I'll just give everyone just a few more seconds to do this. Yeah, just to remind everyone, do not edit on this sheet, right? Because yeah, we'll want this to share with other participants as well. So you can duplicate the sheet and keep one for yourself. You can rename it to your own, maybe your own soft skill development plan or your soft skill development journey. Feel free to let me know as well if there's any questions, any issues that you have, technical difficulties you have as well. Okay, I see most of you on this worksheet already, so that's wonderful. Okay, make sure you can duplicate the sheet and you can edit it on your own as well, on your own Google Drive. Okay, so seems like everyone is doing okay, coping fine. So I'll just continue with a step-by-step workshop. So this part will be very, very hands-on. I would love to hear your feedbacks, any questions you have along the way, any comments, or anything that can describe or explain further as well that will help you. Feel free to sound that out in the chat. Okay, so the first step, right, for everyone now would be to how to be more intentional, right? So the first step would be to actually determine a few soft skills that you want to track. So what are some of these soft skills that you really want to know whether you have them or you want to develop them, right? Soft skills that you want to be more aware about, right? So how I would suggest you to decide what these soft skills are. It could be a key skill or a few skills that you want to be able to manage your community better, for example. So maybe for me, I put an example there. I want to be more empathetic. I want to have more empathy. So this is one skill that I want to track. Another skill that I want to track could be teamwork. Right? I want to track how well I actually perform, how effective I am in teams when I work together with other people. Another key skill that I might want to track maybe could be leadership. Where I want to track how good of a leader I am, how effective of a leader I am in certain situations, right? And for some of you who might be lost as to what kind of skills you want to track, let me give you a tip. What you can do is to search for your job description of your dream job, right? Look at what the job description is. What are some of these skills that they are looking out for their ideal candidates, right? So for example, you want to be in the film industry, right? I remember someone who was in the film, doing film studies. For some of you who might want to be a policy analyst, for example, what you can do is you just do a quick search and search for some of these key skills that are required for some of these dream opportunities that you're applying for. So it doesn't have to be for a job. It could be for any opportunity, a school, a college application, school application, a scholarship that you're applying for, a volunteering opportunity that you want to take up. Right? What are some of these key skills that are actually required for some of these opportunities that you're looking out for? So once you have determined some of these skills that you want, in your personal Excel worksheet, what you can do in row 9, right? Key in some of these skills. Soft skill A, soft skill B, soft skill C. You can add more columns if you wish. You can just track one soft skill for now. Key that in, right, and keep track of this soft skill throughout this entire workshop. So I'll just pause here for all of you to determine, 1, 2, or 3 of these skills that you want to track. And once you're done, you could just type a done in the chat so that I know that you are ready to move on. So feel free to do more research as well as to what are some of these skills that you want to track. For me personally, I will look for skills that I want to choose to develop, in the next month or so. So definitely developing many skills at the same time might be quite difficult, it might make us lose focus. So what actually worked well for me was to just focus on maybe 1 or 2 skills every season so that I can be more intentional in developing them further. Right, so yeah, once you're done, just type a done or maybe an emoji in the chat so that I know that you are ready to continue. So maybe I'll just repeat how to use the worksheet again. Some of you might be confused. So if you look at row 9 of the Excel sheet, that is where you can input these key soft skills that you actually want to practice and measure and track over time. Okay, so while some of you are actually doing this, right? So what's going to happen, right, after knowing some of these soft skills, right, is to determine what are some of these observable behaviors that define this skill. So this might be slightly confusing. Let me explain further. So for example, if a key skill that you want to track is empathy, what are some things that you can do to showcase that you are empathetic? So some of the behaviors can include being fully present with others. It could mean listening non-judgmentally. It could mean asking questions instead of giving advice. These are 3 of the many behaviors that you can actually demonstrate, you can actually carry out to show that you have empathy, right? So after all of you have identified these key skills that you want to demonstrate, think of, for each of these skills, what are the behaviors that you can demonstrate to show that you have this skill. And likewise, you can fill that out on the row 9 of the Excel worksheet as well. So you can fill in for empathy, what's the first behavior, the second behavior, and the third behavior. Likewise for the second soft skill and the third soft skill, right? So maybe this will give all of you more context when choosing your soft skills. I'll just give everyone a bit more time to do this. I understand this might take a little bit longer. Definitely when you're done with this, both this, identifying the soft skills and the behaviors, feel free to just type it in the chat or ask me any questions you might have as well for this first few steps of the activity. Yeah, I understand some of you have just joined recently. Yep, so just to update everyone, right, this is a worksheet that I think I've sent you in the chat as well. So I think just to add on, while some of you are just identifying some of these skills and some of the behaviors that make up the skill, this is another tip, right? For some of you who are crafting some of your applications for some of these jobs that you're interested in applying for, right? The first thing to do will definitely be to look at the job description. I believe for a lot of jobs who have their openings, they will also post not just the role, but what is expected and what an ideal candidate will look like. Right, these are the things that you should pay careful attention to, because these are the skills and some of the behaviors that they have identified. They make you a good fit to the organization of your choice. So all of you can just take this opportunity as well to look back at some of these job descriptions, some of these openings that you have been looking at. not just jobs, definitely, other applications as well. And once you're done with this step, you can type done in the chat so that I can move on to the next few steps on how to use the worksheet. Okay, for those of you who are done, maybe you could just give me a thumbs up or type in the chat so that I know that you are done. If any further questions, feel free to let me know in the chat as well. Okay, I have a question. About, is it possible that some of my behaviors are coinciding with a soft skill because I can manifest a soft skill behavior that is also another soft skill? I understand, meaning, let's say if you were to choose maybe empathy and maybe another soft skill, maybe let's say being a good listener, right? Maybe being a good listener under communication, listening non-judgmentally, right? This behavior might be in both soft skills. It might be empathy and it might be in communication as well. That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. And that's good, right? Because you are very aware that, you know, with this one behavior, you are actually demonstrating multiple soft skills at the same time. So I think this gives you more awareness as well. Okay, okay. For some of you who have already done, right? I see. Yeah. Ying-Long, yeah, I think you're asking what soft skill did Carla choose. So I think not just for Carla, right, but anyone else who's actually done. Any one of you who want to share what are some of these skills and key behaviors that you have demonstrated, or rather, what are some of these skills that you have chosen? Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself, or you can also type it in the chat as well.
Hello, maybe I just share so they feel less shy. So for me, one thing that I have seen in many of the job description, you know, my dream job, they talk a lot about managing a team. And that's something that is very important, I think, that for the type of jobs that I like really to be able to manage and receive and share feedback with my peers. I think that's something that I need to would really like to be able to track and be able to develop as well. Another thing that it's always there somehow is like to be able to inspire your colleagues, you know, and be able to mobilize, you know, the team to achieve goals in one team as together. So those are the soft skills that I think they might be related to leadership, and also has a lot to do with teamwork and empathy as well. There is no way you can, the way I see it, to really encourage and inspire your team, have no empathy in the workplace. So I think that's from my side. I hope I did the exercise well.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Carla, for sharing. Yeah, so one thing that you realize, right, is that some of you might ask, what is the difference between a skill and a behavior? So sometimes people get a little confused, right? So how I actually advise on this is that for behaviors, you normally use action verbs. So like heard from Carla, like mobilize a team or and inspire a team. And these are all verbs that we actually tend to use compared to a skill. So a skill can be things like teamwork, maybe empathy, leadership. This is a competency. So for those of you who are a bit confused on what the distinction is, you can think of what are some of these action verbs that you can use to talk about the behavior, to exhibit that certain competency. Okay, is there maybe one more person who would love to share? Amelia, I think I saw you turning on your video for a moment. Do you want to ask a question or share? Oh, Dinglong nominated somebody. Quarita. Yeah, tell me if I'm pronouncing your name correct. Quarita. Would you like to share?
Yes, I can just say on this that empathy, yes, is a great part, but I would like to share that basically I had a question, that is our behavior a part of soft skills, or our soft skills shape our behavior? And plus not expecting from others, plus being positive and understanding people and us, like situations and us, are also basically shaping our good soft skills and communications properly, right?
Sorry, so could I clarify your question? Your question is whether soft skills shape behaviors, or like behaviors kind of shape soft skills? Is that your question?
Yeah, I mean, is soft skills a part of behavior, or is our behavior a part of soft skills? Yeah, basically.
Okay, wonderful question. This is something that I thought about a lot of times as well. So I don't really see it as soft skills or behaviors making up soft skills, or soft skills making up behaviors, but I just see it as behaviors as a way to showcase the soft skills, to show that you have those soft skills. So I won't see it as like a subset.
So how we prefer to behave in a situation, basically a prism brain mapping sort of thing. So that is also dependent on all the traits which we are having in our mind, and plus how we are perceiving and understanding things, right?
That's right. That's right. So a competence, so a soft skill is something that you actually already possess, right? It's something that you have. It's like a knowledge that you have. Let's say leadership is a form of knowledge, right? But nobody will actually be able to know that you have this form of knowledge until you display it in the form of behaviors, until you showcase it in the form of behaviors. So if I bring all your attention back to the iceberg model, it's all soft skills, but for behaviors are things that are actually observable. So let's say your teammate can actually see what you've done. Your manager, your supervisor can see what you've done. These are the behaviors that showcase that you have that form of knowledge. So the whole exercise here is for all of you to identify that skill that you want to develop, but then think about how then you can show everyone or show the people around you that you actually have this skill. Yeah, which is why we're identifying some of these behaviors. And like I mentioned, it'll be good to do it in a action verb form, right? That will be a good exercise to think about what you can do.
Okay,
Okay.
so many a times I've seen this that some people shy out to show the behave in a manner in which they are thinking, because might be other person will feel not good, so maybe might get hurted or something. So is that a form? If what is the I mean the relationship process in that case would be pointed towards the person who is shying away from showing what he's thinking, or basically the other person is wrong, not wrong, but basically the other person is having a lack of soft skills basically.
Yeah, I feel it's both actually, both people, but I think it's very different type of skills. One of it is definitely as the communicator. The other one will probably be a listener or the receiver. So in communication is just so broad. As a listener, there are a set of skills that you have to exhibit to show that you are a good listener or good receiver. But if you are somebody, say for example, for me who's actually conducting a class or sharing, there's a different set of communication skills that I will also need to exhibit. So I believe it's both ways. Yeah.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, you can
Thank you so
continue.
much for the questions. Yeah, do you study psychology by any chance? Yeah, it seems like it seems like you're really well versed in this as well. Okay, soft skills about behavior. So it's the same with hard skills. Yeah, so I would think so. So the similarity between soft skills and hard skills is that you both need to exhibit certain behaviors to showcase that you have the skill, right? But the thing about hard skills is that it's so much easier to quantify and so much easier to assess. For example, if you are measuring for, say, how good you are in a programming language, you'll probably be able to take an assessment or test to showcase what's the score, right, for how good you are in this programming language. With various questions that you can answer and things like that. But for soft skills, there really isn't really an assessment that you can take to know how good you are at it. There's no score that you can kind of assign, which is why behaviors, right, showcasing behaviors and the fit to the organization is really important. Okay, so since like a lot of you are done, so now for the second step of this workshop, right, would be to look at row 4. Yeah, look at row 4 of this worksheet, right, row 4 and row 5. So what's happening here, right, is that I would like to have all of you to think back into a moment this week. So I mean, this week is rather short, it's only Tuesday. You could think last week as well, the previous week. Do a reflection about how you have demonstrated some of these soft skills, or was there an opportunity for you to demonstrate some of these soft skills? And you could also think of a piece of feedback that you've gotten from your teammate or your supervisor during that particular experience. So I understand we're all, it's a very short session now. So what you can do is to look at row 5, yes, week 1, right? So week 1 is the first week of your reflection and your soft skill developmental journey. Maybe you can do it on like Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on which day. And yeah, you can do your self-reflection about what you have actually done. So it could be like example, I actually was able to withhold my opinions. You see that example there. Or it could be having, someone actually told you that, oh, wonderful, you actually have, waited for someone to actually finish speaking before you responded. So I think that could be a piece of feedback that you could write in as well. So the whole point of this exercise is to do, 1 or 2 self-reflections, or maybe recall a feedback that you have gotten about how you have practiced these soft skills that you have identified, right? And talk about the things that you have done, the behaviors that you have demonstrated, behaviors that you have practiced to showcase that you have this skill. Okay. No worries. I understand some other people were nominated, so you can feel free to share again later. Yeah, I'll just have a few of you to share for each for each segment. So I understand this might take a little bit longer, but it's okay. You can just do a short reflection first, and you can continue to fill this up after this session also. Yeah, so just maybe 1 or 2 reflections. Reflect on a specific moment. So think back. Maybe it could be a meeting you had with your supervisor to update your progress or what you've been working on. It could even be a short conversation you had with your friend about some of the problems he or she was facing. It could be a small conflict that you have got into because of some opinions that you couldn't agree on. It could be you doing a proposal, presenting your proposal for an event that is coming up. Yeah, these are just one of the many, many moments that you can reflect on. Okay, so once you are done with this step, same thing, you can type a done in the chat, and you can let me know as well if you have any questions so far. It doesn't have to do with this step. It could be anything that I mentioned earlier as well.
Maybe I can share a little. Carla nominated me a while ago.
Wow, wonderful. Yes.
So one of the things I've been trying to focus on is trying to do one thing at a time rather than doing multiple. It's been a habit of mine to do too many things in one go and not focus on one thing and give a lot of attention to one thing.
Yes.
And
Okay.
this has been something I've been trying to work on, not just work-wise, but personally as well. Like even if I'm in a conversation, I might be thinking other things in my brain about doing a lot of things. So this is something I've been trying to put a little bit of effort into and not just focusing on one thing. So yeah, that's one of my main goals.
Wonderful. So could I check with you, what is that soft skill? What is that soft skill that you have identified?
I'm not sure what to put this under though.
Yeah, maybe just a suggestion, right? Feel free to feel free to write something else if you think it's more suitable. I will put as maybe focus, right? Focus might be this skill that I am working on. And some of the behaviors might be, say, doing one thing at a time. Maybe the second thing could be removing distractions. That could be another behavior. Maybe the third behavior could be preventing myself from multitasking. So I think these are some of the things that I heard right from the recount. So these are the specific behaviors that maybe you can write in the behaviors that you want to identify. And these are some things that you can work towards as well for your future experiences. Yeah. Maybe are there some examples of how you plan to work on this, or how have you been trying to work on this in some specific moments in the past?
If I can give an example, during a conversation, sometimes I just tend to drift away. And it's been like an active process to bring myself back to the conversation, get back to the same thing that I've been doing. So I try to do that with work as well. If I'm trying to finish a certain project and not think about a different assignment, so I have to keep bringing myself back. So it's like an active mental process.
Okay. Yeah, that's wonderful. So for in your case, right, how I would see this playing out in your worksheet, right? You could write something like during a conversation I had with my friend, I actively put myself back to the conversation, although there was a tendency to think about other things at the same time. Yeah. And to be honest, this is something that I tried myself as well. One of my bad habits is that on my laptop, there are many notifications that come from my Telegram, from my WhatsApp, from my Microsoft Teams, from Slack, right? And sometimes when you are very focused on something, you then tend to click on the notifications and reply a message or reply an email. So what I actually did was to turn off all my notifications on all my devices except for my phone. Yeah, so I think these are some active behaviors that you can talk about in your reflections as well. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for sharing. I have some nominations. Okay, maybe one more person would like to share? Yes, I feel you, Ding Long. You open Facebook for a very specific thing, and then you multitask, so you forget like why you actually went there in the first place, and then you lose your train of thought. Very, very common. So I think focus is something that all of us can work on as well. Maybe could I have one more sharing about another skill that you plan to work on? Another soft skill that you plan to work on? Any nominations from anyone? Especially those of you who have shared, you can feel free to nominate someone.
Okay, hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Who is this speaking? Amelia.
Amelia. Yes.
Yes,
Amelia.
yes. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Meet you. I'm so glad to meet everyone here. So I'm so excited to learn about these soft skills. So somehow I came a bit late due to my activities. So then, yeah, I knew about just now. You already explained that it is about behavior. Yeah, somehow, yeah, we know talk about soft skills all about our attitude, our behavior, such as our all about discipline, all about our confidence, all about our communication skills. Yes, is it related to that?
Yes,
But,
definitely.
yeah.
I think all these skills that you mentioned.
Yeah, all are included in soft skills. Yeah, so everybody knows that. But somehow, to be a leadership, we must get that. We must get these soft skills. Yes, so that we are
Right.
Somehow, yeah. I'm still confused. It's like that. How to be, because many people know that it's, but somehow we still fail in confident. Still fail that.
Okay. Could you maybe elaborate what you might feel? So is it because when the real situation arises, you're not able to express it, you're not able
Yeah.
showcase the behavior? Is that what you are getting at?
Yeah. How to change this kind of behavior? Yeah. As we all know that confidence is one of good soft skills which can bring you up to, in the public, among new friends, whoever we met in life. But somehow it's so difficult. Many people fail in that. They have many skills, such the about more than that, but cannot apply that. They fail in their soft skills. So how are we going to help this kind of people? Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for the question. So I think your question will be more of an application. So how do we translate, say, this like reflections, reflections and to actual application, right? So how I would see this, right, is looking at finding the experience to practice it. And normally, what you should actually do is to find smaller experiences first, right? Find smaller experiences before going further into say what are some of these bigger experiences. So maybe I'll give you an example like confidence, right? Confidence. So for confidence, right, a lot of people are afraid of public speaking. So it might not mean, it might mean that you don't start off with speaking in front of a group of 400 people. It might mean maybe you start in a group of three people, just a group of friends. And then you find the next step to think about how then can you practice this something a bit bolder in maybe a slightly bigger group. So it's really looking at the action plan. How can you take baby steps towards that grander goal that you set for yourself? Yeah, so I hope that answers your question. But it's wonderful that you already have that awareness. So definitely the awareness is always the first step to developing the soft skill further.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'll just move on from here, right? So the next step, right, for everyone to work on now is to look at that paragraph of reflection text, right, and highlight the behaviors that you talk about in that piece of reflection on the feedback. So maybe let me give you an example. In your reflection, you wrote, I was able to withhold my opinion so that I can understand what he said fully. So what you can actually do is to highlight the behavior that you talked about in that reflection. And in this case, it is withhold my opinions, right? So when you actually highlight this in red, you can actually match that with some of these behaviors that you have written for the soft skill. So withhold my opinions is maybe similar to listen non-judgmentally, right? It's one of the behaviors that you've identified. So what you can do in row 12, right, is to give yourself 1 point if you find a match between the behaviors in your reflection and the behaviors that you identify as part of the soft skill. Okay. Yeah, so I'll just give everyone just a few more minutes to work on this. Okay, so let me know if any questions at all regarding how this can be done. So the first step will be to look at your reflection or your feedback paragraph, highlight the behaviors that you talked about in this experience. And then what you have to do next is to match this with the behaviors that you've identified for some of these soft skills that you want to develop and track. So like I mentioned, for example, in this thing that we have, I was able to withhold my opinions. So when you highlight withhold my opinions, you can actually match it to one of the behaviors, listen non-judgmentally. So what you do in the worksheet is that you assign listen non-judgmentally 1 point. So you get 1 point for this particular behavior that you want to track. Right, so if you realize this is quite a tedious process, right? But this is what it takes to kind of track what kind of soft skills you have. And definitely it has to come with consistency. It has to come with consistent reflection on what you have to, what you want to measure for and what you want to track over time. So definitely if you do more reflections, if you identify more soft skills and the corresponding behaviors, you'll be better able to measure and track some of these soft skills that you want to understand better. Okay, and what happens, right, after a while, after you have done more reflections and feedback, I understand now it's still really early, but you definitely have to do more over time. You realize some possible patterns. So the first one would be some of these behaviors have more points than others, but there are some things that you do very often, more so than others. However, there are also some of these behaviors that tend to show more in a certain context compared to another context, meaning maybe in a more informal context, while talking to your friends, you're more likely to do this. But maybe in a work context, like one of you, right, said about confidence, right? Maybe that's something that you can do more easily in a friend context, but not so much in a work context, right? So these are some things that you might see. And what you might also realize is that then you do have strengths and blind spots. So strengths are things that you do more often, some behaviors that have more points. So think of, for your strengths, how can you further enhance it in that context you haven't encountered before? Meaning, you are very, very good at public speaking or sharing and communicating, but this is only the case within your friend group, right? So how can you then find the opportunity to practice these behaviors in maybe a work context, in a work meeting or a meeting with a supervisor that makes this even better? As for the blind spots, right, it could be some behaviors that you demonstrated the least, those with the least points. So how can you find opportunities to start practicing this more intentionally? So this is about the point of the application as well, right? So how do you find baby steps, set baby steps and these smaller goals for you to start practicing these soft skills more intentionally? So definitely all this is always a work in progress. It's always something that you have to work on consistently. And what we see is a developmental cycle. It never ends, right? So after identifying that soft skill, you reflect and get feedback, you compare and analyze, and then you practice. And based on the feedback you get, you reflect again, get feedback, and then compare. So it's a cycle, right? It's a cycle of developing this, becoming more intentional, being more aware, and being more proactive in finding context to practice some of these soft skills, right? So after all this hands-on activity that all of you have been doing, allow me to just have a very quick sharing of then how does Skilio come in, right? How do we actually use this portfolio to help you achieve the above, right? So what the Skilio platform is, essentially, like I mentioned, is a digital soft skills portfolio for students. And what happens is that students can actually add experiences on the Skilio platform. So these experiences are things that you can do your reflections and get feedback on. So an experience could be, say, a meeting I had with my supervisor yesterday. It could be a mentorship program that I'm in. It could be, say, the movers community, a community that I'm in, a workshop that I've attended, maybe a workshop today, right? So it can be a broad range of experiences, from workshops to mentorship sessions to events that you have planned, or even a job experience, things like that, right? And what happens is that for each of these experience, you then do your self-reflections about your learnings and add milestones. So For example, for today's soft skill workshop, this could be a milestone. You could write down what you have learned, right? I've learned to be more intentional about my soft skill development. I've learned to record what I've gone through. I've learned to get feedback from other people. I've learned to look at job descriptions when deciding what are some of these soft skills that I want to develop. So these are some of the self-reflections. And if you realize all these reflections and feedback are all in prose, there is no multiple choice because it's very difficult to assign a number to soft skills. But what we actually help you then do is to actually look at all these reflections and feedback and convert them to different charts and different insights that you can look at. So like I mentioned, when I mentioned looking at the behaviors, we do that for you, right? So based on the reflections that you have done, we actually then pick out some of these behaviors that you talk about inside your portfolio, and we tell you what these behaviors mean. Does this mean that you have adaptability skills? Does this mean that you have exhibited leadership skills, communication skills, and things like that? And we tell you how these soft skills have changed over time as well. So we do the calculation, we do the tracking for you, but what you have to do as a user is to be consistent and be proactive in your reflections and feedback. And finally, what we actually do then, with all these insights that we actually have come out for you, we actually then help you customize your application for certain jobs that you want to apply for, certain interviews you want to apply for in certain industries and job roles you're going for. So for example, this person, she's applying for school admission at this particular university and this particular school. So what we actually help her do is to tell her what are some of these soft skills that they are looking out for and what are some of the soft skills that she has, right? And we then customize her application so that she is better able to showcase some of these soft skills in her interviews, in her resumes, and in her cover letters as well. So we help them customize and personalize this application for them to have the tool to be more competent and be more confident in acing these applications. And eventually, this portfolio that you actually have can be shared as a public link. So you can paste this public link on your LinkedIn profile, on your resume. You can share it with anyone who wants to look at it as well. And what happens is that your supervisor, your HR recruiter can actually click in your portfolio and look at all these reflections and all these soft skills that you have actually demonstrated. So we're not here to actually replace the resume or replace your LinkedIn, but we are here to be able to make your soft skill credentials more credible, right? We are here to actually bridge the soft skill gap because we realize that soft skills is something that is so important, yet at the same time is so difficult to give evidence for. And this is something that we want to help users do, right? So actually today, right, I do have a participant, a user who's actually used the Skilio platform. And I just, got him to actually share a little bit more about, how he has actually used it and how it has actually helped him. So yeah, let's all say hi to Gary. You can just, have a reaction to welcome him. Yeah, and he'll just have a very short sharing on how the Skilio portfolio has helped him and maybe some advice he has to for all of you, right, who might want to use a portfolio as well. Yeah, go ahead, Gary. Thank you so much for being here as well.
Hi, I'm Gary. So I'm a NUS student, right? So I'm still studying. So I got to know about Skilio sometime, I think a year back or so. I think I can't remember, it was either Zihui or was it Felix who was doing the presentation for one of the camps and such. So so ever since I've been using the Skilio platform already. So I think about a year or so, right? So I mainly use it to like write down my reflections and learnings from the activities that I joined in. Yeah, like Zihui mentioned about the movers community, you can write about your experiences. Yeah, because for me, I previously stayed on campus in NUS. So like when you stay on campus in hostel, you actually have a lot of opportunity to join a variety of different activities and communities. Yeah, so I find Skilio a very good platform, right, for such purposes, right? Because you can literally just put down any information about the activities I've joined in one platform itself. So what I do is that usually I spend about on average 10 minutes, right, about every week. right, writing my reflections. So especially when there are certain like leadership programs and committee meetings, right? These are actually, I think, very good learning space lah, where I can learn from my peers. So what I usually do is that I will write my reflections after all these meetings and sessions. And sometimes I do ask for feedback from my peers because it helps me to improve also lah. Yeah, so I think the most interesting part about Skilio is the soft skills inside. It's like sometimes you don't intentionally like display certain soft skills, right? But through their AI algorithm, I realized that hey, when I was doing certain behaviors, display certain behaviors, right? I actually display this set of soft skills, and these insights will then help me when I go for interviews and such, right? Because in the past, I always have to rack my brain, right? When I have to prepare for my interviews. So like, how do I actually phrase my experience such that um, I display certain soft skills and such. So especially when now with all the scholarships and job applications, they are looking for more than just academic grades. All these soft skills insights from Skilio really help out a lot, really help me to articulate how I want to present my answer when I going through the interview process itself. So yeah, so to ask for a tip, right? So I think if I were to share a tip, right, I think it would be consistency, right? I think previously in the front, we also mentioned a little on that soft skills can be nurtured. So yeah, so in my opinion, it's not just about consistently demonstrating these soft skills so that it becomes ingrained, but also supplement it with tools such as the Skilio platform. Just like because of COVID, right, there's more focus on well-being and mindfulness, and there are tons of useful apps that companies see. So I think Skilio is one of those that really helps me out in terms of the soft skills component. So for myself, I spend about 10 minutes a week, right? Not very intrusive into my schedule, but at the same time, sufficient amount of time for me to do my reflections. Yeah, that's all. I hope this helps.
Yes, thank you so much, Gary, for sharing. Okay, yeah, so I think this is just a short excerpt, right, for everyone to just hear about how user has actually used our platform. And yeah, feel free to ask me more questions if you have as well. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, just to quickly wrap up what I've mentioned, just leave a little bit of time for all of you to just chat with me a little bit. I talked about some of the myths of soft skills, how you should be more intentional in developing it with some of the tools that are provided, the worksheet as well, you can continue to use it, and creating your own soft skill developmental portfolio, right? So yeah, like I mentioned, the skill portfolio is actually released, is public now for everyone to actually download. So for all of you now, we are actually still only compatible on mobile. So what you can actually do is to use your phone and scan this QR code to actually fill in a short form. And what happens is that you actually bring you to this portfolio link that you can access your account straight away. Right. So I'll just leave this here because I think this is actually my last slide. Yeah, this is actually my last slide. So I'll just leave this here for all of you to get a portfolio for yourself. And what I'll do as well is to paste this link into our Telegram channel. So Skilio also has our Telegram channel where we have updates on some of these opportunities that some of you might be interested in. I'll paste it in the link as well. And meanwhile, while we are doing this, feel free to ask me any questions in the chat, and I'll answer them to the end. Yeah, I think that should be it from me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for the links as well. We did learn a lot today, especially, some of this myth that we hear all the time. And that was really, really insightful also to start thinking about it. One thing is just to, to have us share it and listen to, and another very different thing is to put us to think and to develop it ourselves. So thank you so much for that. Also just want to pass it over to all of you. If you have any question, please just unmute yourself or type it in the chat. And we still have a few minutes, so let's see. Dinglon, do you have anything to add?
Yes, no, nothing to add, but just thanks so much, Jihui. Such a cool session. And yeah, maybe just to wrap up. So yeah, basically everything that you have done today, the Skilio portfolio allows you to do it in a more easy way. So of course, I think continue using the spreadsheet, but as well try out the Skilio portfolio. The good thing is they analyze everything for you. So you just need to write things down, reflect, and as Gary mentioned, I think the key in developing soft skills and understanding soft skill is consistency, right? So Gary says every week spends 10 minutes or more. So I think it's an investment in yourself and on the future. But yes, just try it out. If you are doing journaling, maybe add the soft skills component to your journaling. But yeah, from our side, I mean, we'll have the recording, so we'll also share with you if you need to come back to some points. We shared on the chat box all the links, so I subscribed to the Telegram already, but yeah, you can also download the portfolio. And yeah, I think we'll try to I mean, I think, yeah, try to use it more, bring your friends as well. And of course, Jihui and the team is always available if you have any questions, or you can send us to us as well. But yeah, just try it. I think for movers, what we aim to do, of course, through the movers journey is for you to develop soft skills, actually, such as leadership, collaboration, teamwork, communication, facilitation, empathy, listening. So yeah, all of what we spoke today. And definitely Skilio is a great way for you to first reflect on your progress regularly, but also have, this analysis of, how much you are improving, what are maybe some blind spots, what are some soft skills that you didn't think about before. And yeah, for me, so many people ask me to share, but yeah, I put negotiation because something I never thought about in my life, negotiation. I was struggling so hard to find behavior, but I think ultimately it depends on listening, on understanding your own needs and communication. So I found the answer. But yeah, I think make good use of this tool. And we are all here, Skilio movers, if you have any questions. So, and yeah, and maybe last one question, but yeah, keep coming. The thank you for Skilio, Jeffrey. If you can share one key learning, one keyword, one thing that you take away as well from the session, please share on the Zoom chat.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you everyone for your kind words and your questions as well. I think one very big question that a lot of users have is, I don't have enough experiences, but I think the fact that all of you are in this community, you have already a ton of experiences to do your reflections and feedback on. So I think that's a great start already. Yeah, so feel free to ask me any other questions you might have as well. Yeah, and I'll just put this here as well. This is my QR code for my LinkedIn profile. Feel free to connect with me, have a chat. If you have any questions at all, if you want to reach out to the Skilio community also.
Awesome. Yeah, maybe they still processing all the information now. But yeah, so, and what was just mentioned, I also want to just echo what it was just mentioned right now, that, you are doing your movers journey already, and you are facilitating or attending all these workshops. So there is a lot of learning going on. And that's a great opportunity for you to take advantage of these opportunities, reflect on it, and start creating your portfolio. So please take it as a great way to expand your opportunities as well, and learn way more about yourself and how can you improve. So yeah, it just complements really well the movers, what we want to achieve, what we want you guys to achieve. So yeah, no, thank you so much. If there is no questions for now, if anything, you can always just drop us an email or directly to Zoom Crew. She has just shared also here her email and everything. So please feel free. And yeah, nothing else, no comments, no questions before we close. Awesome. Then that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all your comments and for doing all this with us today. Thank you also for being here, and Suhu for your time and sharing with the community. We will also record this, as it was mentioned, we will be sending over. And yeah, so thank you all. Have an awesome day ahead or evening ready. Thank you. See you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.